everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Well folks, it's time once again to celebrate Independence Day and another year of American freedom. You know, while this special historical day is the day where we celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence, sometimes it's always nice to brush up on our American history or read about legendary folklore like Pecos Bill, Black Bart, Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, and many others. And today, I'd like to take a look at a classical but underrated Disney package movie from the early 2000s that features 4 animated American stories. So let's get started. Released to video and DVD on February 12, 2001, this is Disney's American Legends. Now, this movie is an animated anthology film comprised of 4 classic animated musical shorts from Walt Disney Animation Studios based on America's Tall Tales. These stories include John Henry, The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, Paul Bunyan, and The Brave Engineer. And what are my thoughts on this movie anyway? Well, in my opinion, this has got to be one of the most underrated direct-to-video package movies ever. And I think it's a movie that's absolutely worth watching if you love American folklore. And to further explain why I like this movie, let's move on to Mustang notes. The film was directed by Laura Shapiro, known for a few TV shows like The Americans, Impulse, and Berlin Station. The writing for the film was provided by Shirley Pierce, who did the screenplay for Disney's Dinosaur, and she did writing for Home on the Range, along with a couple animated segments from Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, and a segment from the Disney Princess Enchanted Tales video, Follow Your Dreams. Each segment of the film was hosted by the legendary James Earl Jones, best known as Darth Vader from the Star Wars series, and Mufasa from the Lion King franchise. And in my opinion, James Earl Jones is a remarkable host for this movie, just like the time when he introduced the Carnival of the Animals segment in Fantasia 2000. Also, while hosting, Jones tells us about popular tales from American folklore and how the world has changed through the tales of American heroes. As for the animation, well, to me, the animation for each story is absolutely excellent. Yes, most of it is classical due to 3 of these segments being from the days while Walt Disney was still alive, but overall, it's still great nonetheless. And now, let's talk about each story one by one and see what I think about them. First up is the story of John Henry, released on October 30th, 2000. In 1872, not long after being freed from slavery, John Henry happens across a railroad building project near the Allegheny Mountains. There, an entire crew of freed slaves have been promised land if they can finish by the deadline, but they fail when they become exhausted and unable to continue. Fortunately, John has the strength of 10 men and revitalizes all of them. But despair sets in again when the railroad sends a steam hammer to replace the crew and burns the contract. Thankfully, John proposes a challenge, man against machine. After a heroic effort, including a tunnel through a solid mountain by swinging 2 hammers at once, John wins the challenge, but he sadly collapses in his wife Polly's arms, much to her disappointment. Now, in my opinion, this is a really underrated and inspirational story, and I really love how some parts of the animation not only feel reminiscent to the visual style of the 1950s and 1960s Disney shorts, but also to a Mary Blair-inspired patchwork quilt. Also to note, for those who don't have Disney's American Legends on DVD, you can also find it on the Walt Disney Animation Studios short film collection. Our next story is The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, released on May 27, 1948. This segment, set in 1806, tells the story of a young apple farmer named John Chapman, or Johnny Appleseed, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who sees pioneers and settlers going west, and he thinks he can't join them, until his guardian angel appears and convinces Johnny to journey out west to grow apples on the great unknown. Along the way, Johnny befriends several woodland animals, and as the seasons pass, the apple trees begin growing across the great unknown, which also makes the many pioneers satisfied and happy with their new homes along the whole frontier. Now, not only is this the oldest animated American folk tale in this movie, but it's also one of the oldest that I've ever known about in my life, due to the fact that I was about 4 to 5 years old when I first saw this cartoon during my early elementary years. And this was a few years before I ever watched Melody Time, which may be a subject for a future blog. Anyway, I think Johnny Appleseed's story has got to be one of my favorites, and every time I watch this cartoon, it brings back memories of when me and my classmates made several treats with apples. Plus, Dennis Day, best known from Golden Girl, does a great job narrating and voicing Johnny and his angel. Next is the story of Paul Bunyan, released on August 1st, 1958. Paul Bunyan is a giant man with superhuman strength who changed the world with his gentleness, his pet ox Babe, and all his hard lumberjack work, cutting down timber, clearing open land for farmers and settlers, and town expansions across North America, as well as digging the Missouri River, building Pikes Peak, Yellowstone Falls, and many other things. However, soon, a slick-talking salesman named Joe Maffaw encourages loggers to be modern by using gas-powered chainsaws and a steam train to transport the timber, which makes Paul protest that nothing can ever replace the heart and soul of himself and Babe. So, the men decide to host a tournament with only one rule. Whomever creates the highest pile of lumber at the end of one day's work will be declared the superior logger, and the men will adopt the ways of the winner. Now, to be honest, while I did know about this cartoon during my childhood due to it being part of the Disney Favorite Stories collection, like Mickey and the Beanstalk, Wind in the Willows, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, sadly, I didn't really watch it back then. However, I did read about Paul Bunyan's story during my junior high age at Kids Club at the Mission Viejo Christian Church, and during my 3rd grade year at my local libraries. But it wouldn't be until my high school age when I actually saw Paul Bunyan's cartoon on YouTube. And to me, this cartoon is really classical, and I'm also surprised that, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, this cartoon is as old as my mother. Plus, this cartoon has 3 narrators. One was Cal McNabb, the second was Chris Crosshall, and the third was Shot Gunderson. And finally, we come to our last American folktale, The Brave Engineer, released on March 3rd, 1950. This short tells the story of an engineer named John Luther Jones, or Casey Jones, and how he had to go through many different obstacles to try to catch up on time for a mail delivery before getting himself and the train into a large accident with another locomotive. Now, it's been a really long time since I've seen this cartoon on the Disney Channel. Maybe on the Donald Duck Quack Attack show, I can't really remember, but after watching this cartoon for the first time in about 27 years, I feel like it's very fast-paced, and I think Jerry Colonna, best known for voicing the March Hare in Disney's Alice in Wonderland, does a very comedic job narrating. And I think the King's Men are classical singers in this short. However, it should be noted that this isn't the most accurate retelling of Casey Jones, due to the fact that In reality, Jones' fireman, Sim Webb, wasn't really featured in this short, and while Casey was critically injured, he sadly did not survive the accident. Plus, like many classic cartoons produced by Disney and other studios at the time, The Brave Engineer has recently been subject to US censorship editing in a controversial attempt to make it more politically correct in the US by removing weapons such as knives and guns. In this case, a brief scene depicting train robbers brandishing knives and guns has been edited out. Also, aside from the Quack Attack series that I mentioned earlier, the short was also included in Four Fabulous Characters in 1957 and Sing Me a Story with Belle in 1999. And now, let's talk about a few of the songs featured in each short. Our first song is the John Henry theme, which is sung 4 times throughout the John Henry short. To me, this makes a great gospel ballad, and it does a great job at describing what a powerful man John Henry was. The second song in the John Henry story is called Stand Tall Just Like John, which is sung at the short's ending by John's wife Polly while telling her son not to be afraid of storms as she tells him about the legacy of her late husband. And in my eyes, this is another great song, and I think it has a great encouraging message. Next we have The Lord is Good to Me, which is sung by Johnny Appleseed while he harvests apples at his apple tree farm. To me, this is a very sweet song, and I like that Johnny sings it in order to show that he's thankful to the Lord for giving him the apples that he wants. Plus, this song gets a brief reprise when Johnny sets out into the great unknown to grow another apple orchard so that his dream can come true. Next is my favorite song, There's a Lot of Work to Do, which is sung by Johnny's guardian angel while encouraging him to start packing up in order to grow more apples in the great unknown. The reason why this song is my favorite in this segment is that it shows all the wonderful things that apples make, and it may be the kind of song that Applejack would love. Plus, it makes a really fun work song, kind of like Hi Ho or the Cinderella work song. Also, this song gets a reprise at the end of the segment where Johnny's guardian angel tells him to grow more apple trees by following him up to heaven. Another song to talk about is the Apple Feast song, which is sung while the pioneers perform a hoedown dance during an apple feast with an elderly settler. To me, this is a really fun country dance number, and it really makes me want to tap my feet to it. Plus, I thought the funniest part of the dance is when a few couples try to bite an apple tied to a fishing rod. The last song I want to talk about is the Paul Bunyan song, which is sung by the Mellow Men throughout the Paul Bunyan short. To me, like John Henry's theme, this makes another great ballad song, and I just can't help singing along due to how classical it is. And now, let's talk about the characters and a few of their voice actors. Let's start with John Henry, voiced by Jeffrey Jones. In my eyes, John Henry is a hard-working and a strong man, and I like that he helped other freed slaves build a railroad, and I also thought he was very brave to challenge the steam drill driver to a race for who can finish the railroad first. Plus, ever since 2017, I'm surprised that John Henry was the inspiration for a Superman imposter named John Henry Irons, aka Steel. Next is his wife, Polly, voiced by Alfre Woodard, whom I talked about in my blogs of the Wild Thornberrys movie and the 2019 Lion King remake. Polly serves as the narrator for her husband's story, and I think Polly is a very loyal lady. Plus, her singing, provided by Carrie Harrington, is really beautiful. Next we come to John Chapman, aka Johnny Appleseed. Fun fact, Johnny Appleseed was the very first Disney protagonist who had ever existed in real life, the first to ever live in the 18th century, and the first who is deeply religious, and he has a holy book, by the way. And in my opinion, ever since my early childhood, I think Johnny is a very brave, smart, and faithful young man. And aside from his religion, I think Johnny is really kind to animals, like during the scene where he pets a skunk. And he's also very handy with a tin pot hat for cooking and a bag of apple seeds for planting. Also, I like that many American pioneers and settlers considered Johnny as a hero who helped feed them when they were hungry. Our next character is Johnny's guardian angel. Like any other guardian angel, I find this character to be wise, protective, and kind, though also no nonsense and a bit cantankerous. Plus, he's kind of like a grandfather figure to Johnny. Next we have Paul Bunyan, voiced by Tony the Tiger himself, Thurl Ravenscroft, who you may know for his singing in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and he voiced one of the singing head busts at the Haunted Mansion, Buff the Buffalo Head from the Country Bear Jamboree, Fritz and Tangaroa from the Enchanted Tiki Room, Sir Bart from The Sword and the Stone, Captain from 101 Dalmatians, and Kirby the Vacuum Cleaner from The Brave Little Toaster. Now, Paul has got to be the biggest American hero of all time, mainly due to him being a giant. Plus, he's kind, gentle, strong, and helpful while cutting down trees to clear land. Also, during my 3rd grade year, I heard rumors that Paul actually dug the Grand Canyon. Can you believe that? Next we come to Paul's ox, Babe. Babe became Paul's closest friend after he saved him from being frozen in the snow. To me, Babe is equally as strong as Paul, like when he hauls timber on a wooden sled. Plus, he's also loyal and silly, like when he tickles Paul's nose with his tail, and when they playfully ox around. Also, did you know that Babe had an appearance in Epic Mickey 2 and in 2008's Bolt? Because I didn't until just about recently. Next we come to Joe Maffaw, voiced by Bob Amsberry, whom I remember for being in the Mickey Mouse Club, and he voiced one of Maleficent's goons in Sleeping Beauty. Joe is the inventor of the steam saw, and in my eyes, he's kinda a douchebag for trying to cut into Paul's actions with his modern ways. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy was the inspiration for the despicable Flim Flam ponies. Finally, we come to John Luther Jones, aka Casey Jones. Casey is an American railroad engineer who was in charge of delivering the mail on time. In my opinion, not only is Jones brave, but he can also be very tough, reckless, and hasty at times, especially when driving his train at full speed. Plus, while Jones is no longer with us anymore, it's interesting to know that his legacy has influenced modern advances such as the bullet train and email. Also, I heard that Casey Jones got to appear in an episode of the Mickey Mouse Show, and he had an appearance in Epic Mickey 2 as the Spirits of the Wasteland. And now, on to my final words. Overall, Disney's American Legends is a truly underrated and inspirational package film. The animation for each segment is timeless and classical. The music and songs are great to listen to. The characters are all legendary, and the stories show us that they are what legends are made of. And I really love the film's ending message that we should all look for our heroes around us and celebrate them. You can find them in the past, in the present, even in the mirror. And it's for that very reason why I give this film the highest rating of 100%. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me next time where I blog the very first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that I've ever seen in theaters. Mustang Power. Oh, and happy Independence Day, folks.